This is a redo of a 1NR against Jesse and Toby that I did after school. It's on the Death Cult K. Alright, let go. Starting with an overview. Oops, I got a 500 set. Alright. Overview on the Death Cult K. Death being caused mass violence and genocide over 80 studies prove Solomon Greenberg and Straczynski 2K. Where does mortality advantage the paralyzing terror of reminders of mortality stimulate one's world more? The 80 studies supported the idea that making death momentarily increased hostility toward alternative worldviews. This helps explain violence to people with different beliefs and their psychological security respond by annihilation. Xenophobic propensity reaches their zenith when others redeem perpetuating genocide and have continued to resurface. This is also this turns the case because they're bringing up mortality and are constant reminders of death. Actually, what causes us to seek death in the first place. You can also send the from analysis that also makes a similar claim that says towards the case creates chapters as we see life is something that needs to be made certain, but the only thing that is actually certain in life is death itself, which means that we are constantly striving for death. Additionally, these both acts as a prior question to the impacts of the affirmative. It doesn't make sense to weigh the impacts of the affirmative back against the K because the K is just a framing issue. It frames whether or not their impacts are relevant or the discussion of the impacts are relevant or good in the first place. Additionally, they also don't even have an impact to weigh. We can never actually justify statements like such as death or bad or normative statements at all. McIntyre. It can only justify judgment according to the universal rule from his logical can only justify that rule in terms of derived with one general rule, but it's every day. Don't change what reason once you find it such a possible story term in the church and some rule no further reason can be given if the inquiry still going to ask people why should I live like that. There's no further answer to justification to all these choice on guided by criteria each individual that's drawn from their own first principle and the basis of the choice the other and first principle is in the end expression of preference of the individual. Then on the line blind. First on framework. One, there's no res bias. Res basis, the resolution has to limit off the AFNA. The neg, otherwise we can't make it theory arguments topical CPs to make the framework for arbitrary justifying no politics frameworks. And two, is what we do now where we're justifying infinite number of frameworks is just a reason of debated by case basis to avoid subject determination. What might be fair. Three, even if we win, we need a framework. Ours is theirs plus the requirement the teams must defend how they debate, which includes discourse. Four, gateway weeks of death or key to education because they tell us how to decide that. It's a prerequisite to any sort of education about decision making because then you don't really have decision making. All we need to have a framework for the decision making in the first place. Then, 5, reciprocal, we allow the after critiquing that discourse. And 6, justifies racist discourse, gender language, prove the need for valid remedy, bad rhetoric, and our case, key to education, Zaretsky in the 79. Agenda points, life and every person's orientation towards life and death, which is the daily conduct, or socialization, positive friends, raw material, developer, deep beliefs, and discourse, critiques, key to ethics, Zodi, 96. Construction, meaning political power and extremely linked. This is just an ethical imperative that politics states revolve with the representation of the price of politics place for an intensive representation, for dominant modes, meaning deferral to responsibility, and rhetoric is policy. Dobrin 1. Rhetoric has power over the way advanced play, and rhetoric has power of the policy shape, rhetorical announced having a role to play for policy to turn dramatic and return decisions get to take a claim at the table and to do so. And additionally, at the bottom of the framework debate, they make the argument about the importance that's a framing issue. Look, this argument has no warrant institution validity, but it is important for the fact that they really into the trials doesn't even harm to the critique. They say that death is important because it's central to our agents, or life is central to our agents. The death prevents that. Their reinstatement of death is the primary concern within this debate round. Is just really part of means that there's no link claim at the towards the bottom of the line, and it says they talk about other things as well. It do not matter. It's the fact that if reinitiated, the fact that death takes priority over the concerns. And they say utopia fiat, we don't do that. They say the solution for the strength of internal links, for example, bioweapons and things like that. However, those arguments aren't actual links back. The fact that they get an internal link to their impact does not prove that their impact is good in the first place. You can't compare the strength of an internal link to impact. Refunctions these talking about said that their discussion of their impacts is bad in the first place. Their internal links are irrelevant to that question. And they say that, just read a bunch of Dahlinger cards, group those. Dahlinger warrants alpha and egg. One of the assumptions of a death always says Bojo is bad because the assumption of a death is consistent with our critique, which says data should not be assessed with death. 2, we're not about dying. Death regards death to 7, an irrelevant claim that society denies death. We are making an opposite argument. We are saying that it's dangerous to talk about death with linked desire, and its authors agree. So the Crespo 2K. Dahlinger says it's our relationship with death, whether we're arguing that death motivates cultural development. Dahlinger sees a relationship in which death becomes a burden, and through the passion they concludes how we frame death does not have an effect on social code. Dahlinger 98. Marcus admits having a miss under in today's form of social code. This takes even further socializing death trial. Opposite of politics can only extenuate the death trial and must become violent. Philosophers are practices that become furriers of death, and for their cards continually assert that death's bad. We agree that's why we shouldn't trivialize it. And They say ultimately 12-hour voting index sets suppressed in educational settings. They reject commodification of death, crucial in 80. Within the educational setting, the test is to know how decisions can be made, what should not be done, analyzing death advance the cause of all health and the meaning of life. That is a treasure's value increases exponentially. One acts to give love for humankind. And voting index solves a deterrent standard 4. The debaters know that the racist checks common one easiest way to lose the ballot. As judge will make an example for your ethical argumentation has been made an issue in the decision, winning at all costs costs you the win. And B, correct Justice Snyder 84. Ethical consideration was developed during the play of the game. Philosophical disputes given the attention to the particular situation and an issue. Ethical consideration was given inside given debate. So, so we to clarify, this functions as a framing issue. We reject the way they discuss about death at all. That's what we're saying is bad. They don't get an impact to weigh against the kid. It's nonsensical.